Alright, Travis Wingoodsell. Yesterday's book, I was late in coming. It was the facts surrounding the assassination of Joseph Smith Jr. Picture book mostly, with explanations. I did not reveal the murderer. I just showed the facts to point out that what the story is a lie. That somebody else murdered Joseph Smith other than the mob. That it was an inside job. The biggest clue is that the shot through the door is claimed to have been the shot that struck Hiram Smith right here, right around this area right here. The only problem is the shot is way down in this region. Hiram was not shot there. So what's going on, guys? The answer is obvious. It was an inside job. And thus is why I'm doing my lawsuit against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Technically the corporation. The corporation took over Joseph's church and have no idea how to run it as a religion. It was their sole purpose to run it as a cover so that they can commit crime and have their kingdom contrary to the government of the United States. And as a result, the main crime that's obvious, which has been exposed with the 100 billion tithing scam, is that that tithing is collected as protectionist money, similar to how a criminal organization goes around all of the stores and collects an extra revenue on top of the sanitation payments. That's how they do it, as a cover. They have a legitimate job, and so they go around to all the stores to collect the money for the particular business that they run, but they also take in a little extra for the protectionist money. The church, however, forces tithing. You cannot perform any of the rituals, participate in any way, unless you are a full tithe payer. And so that's worse than the criminal organizations around the world. And people are forced to pay as children and those who are on government benefits, Social Security. And those add to the criminal complaints. And so that's one of the main features of my lawsuit, but it's not why. It's not that, oh, they made me pay tithing, because I could just say no. But those of us who know we get punished. And that's where my lawsuit comes from, is that the punishments that the church does to those who stand up against them, who are a threat to them. And you may wonder, well, what poses a threat to the church, as they are worth over $100 billion? And It's the identification of their titles. They all claim to be prophets, seers, and revelators. All of the apostles. And as I did the video the other day, they stole that. Joseph Smith was the only one who was a prophet, seer, revelator, and translator. Section 124, Mormons. He gave the titles of prophet, seer, and revelator, not translator, to his brother Hiram. But to Brigham Young, who was in the 12 traveling council, not the high council, which was the cornerstone of Zion, the traveling 12 council only had the keys to preach the gospel. That's the keys of the kingdom referred to. And it doesn't stop at a period after keys of the kingdom. It's keys of the kingdom to preach the gospel to all the world. And so Brigham Young had no authority. He was not in a runner-up position as he changed it to. Brigham Young stole the church with the murder of Joseph Smith. And Brigham Young then made himself prophet, seer, and revelator, and his counselors prophets, seers, and revelators, and all of his reorganized quorum of 12, which combined the High Council and his traveling council into one quorum of 12. All were made prophets, seers, revelators. And then the video I did about that, I showed how that's serving 15 prophet masters. That's the title. And you can't serve more than one master. If you've ever worked in a business with a chain of command, you don't have those higher up in command come down and give you orders. They purposely have your immediate supervisor be the one to give you the orders. And they're supposed to follow the orders from above. So if you have the bosses reaching down to give orders where they've already given the authority to be authorities, it causes confusion in the business, and thus it is in the church. And Mormons are extremely confused as to what do we obey? What is that list of commandments to get us into heaven, guys? Oh, it doesn't matter, you just pay your tithing. So, lots of confusion in the church because of this. But for me, born and raised in the church, very faithful, went to church over 90% of the time. There was the one occasion where my parents signed me up to sing in sacrament meeting. So because it was the day after Halloween, oh, I feel so sick, I can't go to church. My dad came home early from church and caught me watching a Dodger game. He was so pissed. I'm not singing in church. How dare my parents force me to? But I used to go to the temple every single day here when I moved to Utah. Temples were close by. They were a refuge from the storms of the Mormons. I moved here and was dumped off by the woman who was formerly called my wife. She took off with our kids and my research in Paleo-Hebrew. And that's what the church blacklisted me for, is that I was doing the work that they claim that only they can do as translators, though they don't have the title, because Brigham Young had nothing, he didn't care about translation. He just wanted prophet, seer, and revelator. Screw Joseph Smith and his translations. Screw the Book of Mormon. Screw the Book of Abraham. And so, yeah, he didn't care. So here I come. Oh, the church is true. Okay. How did Joseph Smith make his translations? What do you mean you guys have no answers? Okay, well, I'm going to find out and I'm going to prove Joseph Smith is right. So, yeah, I go and educate myself through the universities up in Canada and supplemental here at the University of Utah. And my education taught me how to do research, philosophy of science, and I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew as a result. I also deciphered Egyptian petroglyphs, and all because I was born and raised in the church, which claims that Joseph Smith was a translator. So if he's a translator, that means his translations are correct. Therefore, it will be shown. All we have to do is learn how to translate. Thus, I learned how to translate because the leaders of the church can't translate. David O. McKay passed off on translating the papyra when it was returned to the Brighamite Church from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and he gave it straight to Hugh Nibley. And Hugh Nibley just does his rambling talk, where if you were to dissect the bits of information of fact and substance, it turns out to be maybe a couple paragraphs, most likely a couple sentences. The rest of his work is just rambling off in a old man babbling, and most of it is just garbage. But it was given to him, and of course then he said, I can't do it. So other scholars, Egyptologists around the world, mostly in the United States, were given the opportunity to examine them. They were confirmed as legitimate Egyptian documents, but they claimed, we can't find the Hebrew name Abraham anywhere in the text of this Egyptian document. Sorry, church, you're wrong. You can't translate. And the church is like, oh no, what do we do? They mess with Christians that way too. There's no way that every single species of animals can fit on the size of the ark. And then Christians fall for it. Oh no, what do we do? And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, you haven't been studying your science lately, have you? Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So, yes, Hebrew, Egyptian. Do I need to explain this to you? So, science is having lots of fun with religion. That's where the church got upset with me, and I didn't even realize it. I was going to the church saying, hey, Joseph is right. There's some truth in what he was doing. And the church instead blacklisted me as a troublemaker and ordered my arrest in 2008. This was because I was throwing in the church in the lawsuit in the 2000s trying to get my kids back. And the judge, Judge Kimball, was the judge who not only dismissed my case to refuse to let it go through, but also said that I can never file again. He added that extra little security for the church. It was against the state, but I included the church and Office of Recovery Services, because Office of Recovery Services say in their documents, if you're going to sue, you have to include us in your lawsuit. So I included them in my lawsuit, and then the reason why the judge was able to protect the church was because the Attorney General said, oh, Office of Recovery Services can't be sued. What do you mean there's a trap? Office of Recovery Services says you must include us in the lawsuit, but when you include us in the lawsuit, you automatically lose because you can't take us to court. This is all that. So frustrating. And so I thought I lost. But that didn't stop former Utah Attorney General Mark Shurtleff from punishing me for having dared sue the church. As a good old Mormon boy himself, he took it upon him to take me to court to validate a foreign government's divorce. Thanks for protecting your own, Mark. And so he led an assault. He also had the laws changed to further punish me with a specific law. I can't remember the law code anymore. They renewed it this year, as I noticed. It was to take away my driver's license. And I was working as a mailman for the Postal Service, federal officer. And and here Mark Shurtleff is wanting to take away my driver's license. And so I had been working on a book, a commentary about the Constitution. I turned it into a petition for a redress of grievances. Why do I dare call it a petition for a redress of grievances? Because I gave it to the Capitol, where Mark Shurtleff's office is. You're supposed to notify complaints with his office. That's in the law. The governor also had been communicated with, John Huntsman Jr. He wants to run for governor again. So yay, now that he's a Russian asset. But it's also his office there at the Capitol. And so it was a complaint to him as well. And then the Matheson courthouse, where Shurtleff took me to court. But that's also where you file complaints. And so I put it there. And then I put one at the federal courthouse, because that's where my complaint was also. The state did not accept that one, because that's the federal courthouse. So it was just the 3 complaints. The third, excuse me for not being able to talk after so long. Third was at the church administration building. That's where the leaders meet. Instead, they purposely filed it that I gave it to the office building. No, guys, come on, be honest. They can't be honest, because they need to cover up what really happened. The discovery indicated they had no interest in taking me to court to prove that I'm the horrible, evil man that they charged me as, terrorist. You know, so yeah, as the people who are protesting against the Utah government's response for the homeless, with the abuses that are going on here, the police raided the protest, which was peaceful. Nothing was going on. The police just decided to show up in their riot gear to keep the peace. Oh, so pissed. I had to comment on that ABC News article. They justified it because they found some people who were protesting who had outstanding warrants. Oh, yay. It's just, Utah hates people so much that they just twist the laws to violate our rights when we're petitioning for a redress of grievance. And when we're not allowed to petition, we then protest. And we're not allowed to protest. That's abuse of government, guys. That's from the church. And it's the church that they were doing this whole thing for, because panhandlers were panhandling on Temple Square. And the church didn't like that, because the church doesn't pay them to get out of poverty, which is what the church is supposed to be doing. Anyway, and so that was the 2008 case. And they had me evaluated as mad. Remember that about Abinadi Mormons? Abinadi was saying, you guys are evil. And so they said, oh, you're threatening the king. A terrorist threat. And you're mad. Crazy mad. It's exactly what they did to me. It's like they love the Book of Mormon for the bad things it teaches. Oh, I can be that bad? Awesome. Oh, I get to be King Noah. I get to be the Antichrist. Mormons. And so I was evaluated with a condition that was used during World War II in Nazi Germany. That's how bad they are here in Utah. And so I got out. Wasn't supposed to get out. I was supposed to be locked up for the rest of my life. You were never supposed to hear this video. You were never supposed to know anything about me and my translations on Amazon. Because the church, they're the ones who can translate. Even though they've done nothing with it. And so I got out, and again I pursued my translations. But the compromat of my 2008 arrest, and if you don't understand compromat, you're not listening to the right news channel, guys. Stop listening to Fox. That's the Russian term for being compromised. That's what the Russians do to everyone who wants to do business or lives in Russia. And it's a simple thing. The judge in my case had compromat against her. She didn't do anything wrong. The Salt Lake Tribune indicates that she was up for review to keep her job, and everyone keeps their job at the federal level. This is the first time where a federal judge, and a female, does not get to keep her job. They had approved her through the first phase, they approved her through the second phase, but then a case came before her that she allowed to proceed. Gaddy versus the COP, the church. And all of a sudden, the third wave and final wave is saying, well, now that we actually think about it, there was this case back in 2016 where a guy came before you who was found in possession of drugs, and you sent him to the newly created Utah drug courts. How dare you? Because that guy then broke free and killed a cop. They blame the judge for that. That's the compromise they had over her. So that if ever there was a time during her review where she goes up against the church and doesn't dismiss the case as Judge Kimball did for mine way back in the 2000s, they have something over her. Oh, gee, too bad. Bye-bye. And so she's gone. And so when I met her with the hearing on the 1st of November, that's when the Salt Lake Tribune article was released, as they were finally allowed to know about it. It was done back in August. And so Mormon Waddups assigned the case to her to remind her of why she's getting fired and to give her an opportunity to do the right thing this time and dismiss my case. That's why she held the hearing, is to try to find cause to dismiss my case. Unfortunately, in that hearing, I said, I have evidence that the church is paying the evaluator. And so the judge said, all right, you have a month to resubmit. Oops. I resubmitted, and she's now taken over a month. We're going on 2 months now, where she has not allowed the motion for service of process to proceed. I was approved for informa pauperis because of what the church did to me in 2008. I'm poor because of the church. I wasn't supposed to get out, but that's the backup plan that they had in place. And so I can't come up with the money to pay an organization to deliver the complaint to the church. It's too much money. And so by this judge who was compromised, not just because of what she did in 2016, no, it's why they fired her, because she went up against the church and allowed the case to proceed, which made news. She's demonstrating the appearance of having been compromised and biased in her decision-making process because she was terminated over an issue with the church. And so the rules of judicial conduct will be used in a motion to recuse on Friday. I'll go in with that motion for her to recuse herself, as I'll point out the Salt Lake Tribune article, pointing out that on the 1st, when we had the hearing, was when the article came out, and her refusal to allow the process of service to commence as a poor person caused by the church is grounds for her to recuse herself, because she's not thinking clearly right now. She is under pressure from the other judges regarding her firing, and this is a case that needs to proceed, and she's not allowing it to proceed, as she's about ready to quit, as she took off the whole month of December. So that's the situation. Sorry it took 30 minutes to do this video for you to explain this, but this is serious business, guys. The church is a criminal organization. Their whole structure is exactly the same, and they're doing the exact same financial crimes and other bullying tactics through that whole organizational chart, which associates at the bottom of the criminal organization are what I call agents in my case. That's you Mormons. When you protect and defend the crimes of the church, you are guilty and are making the church guilty, because RICO says, oh, you guys are loyal to the church through tithing and through the loyalty oaths in the temple. Okay, then we're taking down your organization altogether because you're a part of it. That's how RICO works. That's my case. That's how, if once it proceeds after the service of process is made, the church is through. It's over. There's nothing they can do now. It's not like Gaddy, where they can say, oh, she's just going after us as a religion. She's going after the history. That's mean. Dismiss our case. And that's what they've been doing. If you've followed her case, the new judge is allowing the church to continually motion for dismissal. And he's going, oh, well, this looks interesting. I'm going to have to consider it, guys. And that's what happens. And it's got to stop. And so I don't know of other judges, if they're not biased and compromised by the church. I may not be allowed to proceed with my case because of the church having full control over the federal courts here in Utah. They may have stopped me because of that bias that all judges have. That all judges would need to recuse themselves because of their association with the church. And so that's bad news, because it means we cannot take down the church and stop their crimes. So, yeah, and we can't protest because it's a crime. The police will come in the riot gear to haul people off to jail, to ruin your lives just for protesting your rights and freedoms. That's the government here in Utah. And it has to be stopped, and I'm going to do what I can. I know exactly what to do, but because this judge refuses to allow the process of service to commence, I don't know what else to do then. They are going to stop me and protect the church and and that will result in these agents, as I call them, associates, at my local residence here to continue to oppress me because of the compromise of 2008 and because I failed here. Because that's what they do. Ah, you failed. Great. We're coming after you with full guns blazing. So, I already had the West Valley City Police threaten me, saying, don't you complain to us anymore about crimes committed against you. We're not going to listen. We're not going to respond. As they had their hand on their guns when they said it. Utah police are trigger happy, and they are more than happy to have any excuse to blow away people. You're causing a problem? Protesting? So, yay. So that's my plan. Judge has until Thursday. Then on Friday morning I'll go in. I'll bring my complaint as well for the church, just in case it gets filed that morning. But when the clerk says, nope, it's still pending, okay, here's a motion for recusal. So that's the plans.